We will get going. Okay. Oops, sorry, I'm moving between two screens. There we go. Okay, the recording has started, and thanks, Callie. Good afternoon, everybody. I am calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 1:01 p.m. on November 27th, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded, and that recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. Let's start with our usual roll call of task force members. If you can indicate verbally that you're here when I call your name, that would be good. Paul White.
Present.
Michael Wright.
Here.
Mike Dunges.
Here.
Ron Kumitz.
Here.
Jim Mack.
Here.
Okay, and we are not expecting Commissioner Morrison today. She's out of state. And also joining us is Callie Audette as our administrative support. And let's see, we have several members of the public, it looks like. I'll give everybody, I'll call your name and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and any affiliation that you'd care to share. Stephen, we'll start with you.
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Am I muted?
No, you're not. Stephen Whitaker.
That's all I had to say.
Okay, great, thanks. I'm going to move down the list now as I see it, and that brings me to Cheryl.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Jiggis with CTA Consultants.
Welcome. Next on the list is Daniel Delorier.
Morning, Barb. My name is Dan Delorier. I'm the Lieutenant for the Springfield, Vermont Police Department.
Welcome. Kim Cheney.
Good afternoon. I'm an interested member of the public.
Nice to see you. Philip Sisk.
Good afternoon. Phil Sisk with Mission Critical Partners. Hello.
Welcome. And Richard Townend.
Good afternoon, Richard Townend from Altaris Technology Partners.
Welcome. And I think I've gotten everyone on the list. So we will move on to approval of the agenda. Do task force members have any changes to today's agenda, which was distributed by email and also available on our website? Any changes? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll consider the agenda approved and move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak?
I would.
Stephen, go
Whitaker.
ahead. Go ahead. We'd like to limit to 2 minutes, but we'll be reasonable. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be reasonable as well. I want to just frame the challenge that you're up against. I admire the diligence with which you commend the diligence with which you're keeping frequent meetings to try to get this underway. As you know, we're months behind schedule, as was conceived in the legislation. But the challenge here is that we don't have a work plan. We're trying to hire subject matter experts to execute a work plan that hasn't been written. Similarly, we don't have a work plan to guide a project manager. The first task that needs to be done is to define what it is we're doing, in what order, and who's going to do which parts. And that's not easily replicable from the experience of any of the proposers. I haven't seen any of the proposals, but I have researched some of the firms that have been offering proposals. And pretty much what's outlined and alluded to in the legislation hasn't been done before. It's an integrated plan for a statewide, resilient, failover LMR and LTE integration with backup power designed into it from the start. So pieces of that have been done. Lots of LMR only implementations have been done, more or less with as fragile an electric grid as we have in Vermont. But the LMR LTE integration is really a case of first impression. And to fill the dead zones, to complete an LMR and an LTE canopy across Vermont is going to take a really focused and diligent team, or several teams working alongside each other in close coordination. I don't see the expertise on the task force to manage that. So I think what you're going to need to do is focus some resources on getting that task identification. I think you're going to have a lot of several time and materials contracts, and you're going to have a whole lot of details needing to be fleshed out, which weren't fleshed out in the RFP. And then you're going to have to work from task orders. But if we're trying to do scheduling and sequencing and identification of all the tasks and a legislative relationship with what changes need to be made to account for the fact that we didn't get things done this year, then we're going to have FirstNet integration. We've got the broadband fiber plan integration. We've got a serious lack of governance and coordination across all those other initiatives that I raised earlier. The 10-year telecom plan, the interoperability plan, the broadband plan, the Emergency Preparedness Advisory Council, which has never been appointed. You've got a huge amount of, you're going to have to keep up with the frequent meetings even after you start executing and getting contracts approved in order to get your head around all these other issues. But what I want to suggest is that you realize that you're starting from this place without enough definition to even put these contractors to work. You can't just allow them to interpret their own versions of what the legislation and the RFP failed to elaborate. So we're going to need a clear project scope and definition, and then breaking that up into task orders. And you're going to need an all hands on deck approach to get this off the ground. So I'm encouraged that you've made it this far and that you seem on the cusp of being able to get some experts on board. But I also think you need to recognize that what we're attempting to do will set a model for the nation with the integration of LMR, LTE, FirstNet, and grid resiliency. And we can't afford to screw it up. And we can't afford to tackle it piecemeal or come back and do over what we failed to do on the first round. So that's my plea to you, is to keep your eye on the big picture and find a way to get it done in an integrated fashion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Does anybody else from the public care to comment? Okay, seeing no hands and hearing nothing, we will go to the next agenda item, which is the discussion of one or more contracts planned for executive session. So I will start us off like I typically do by making a motion that the task force find that the sharing of information about bidder presentations and responses publicly would put the task force at a substantial disadvantage in making a decision about awarding a contract to the successful bidder for both RFPs. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Second.
Thank you, Ron. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and or saying aye. All right, I see all task force members' hands, including Ron's, are raised. So that is approved. So we will then make the, I will then make the next motion that we move to executive session for the purposes of discussing one or more contracts. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. I see all the hands are up once
Aye.
again. Thank you. So we will move to executive session. You should all have a link to that on your calendars now. Callie, we typically notify members of the public who care to know when we come back into session. Are you all set to do that?
Yeah, if there's anyone new who I don't have their contact information, if you could drop either your number or your email address, however you'd like to be notified, either in the chat or send it to me privately, I can get those notifications out.
Okay. Great. All right.
Do you expect to take action after the meeting today or not?
There is a potential for that, Stephen.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I'll see task force members in the executive session link.